So I was kind of drowsy today, but I figured I'd do a follow up. I wanted to wait to comment on this until after at least Tucker's show because that's kind of what initially um, triggered me looking into it. And unfortunately, it seems like it was what I suspected. The New York Times is walking back the idea that the Pentagon has confirmed anything about off-world vehicles being in possession of either private or government agencies. It just this whoever this person who was the contractor is convinced of this, and there isn't any evidence presented of it. So yeah, I mean, you'd like to believe that. You'd be like, oh, that sounds really cool, but if you don't have any hard evidence or the government coming out and saying that, hey, we do have this thing, we've been studying it, um, you, we're literally nowhere. So I haven't even seen the document drop. They were supposed to apparently drop it today. I couldn't find it online. And I kind of feel like if it had anything in it, we probably would have heard something. And it seems like the New York Times was just basically doing clickbait. And it's a shame to see kind of, Tucker, I have mixed feelings about how he covers the stuff. It seems like something he's genuinely interested in, but it's kind of, they say fear porn or concern porn. What are these things? We're investigating these things that are, unexplained. And it's like, I mean, he seems convinced it's true stuff. And maybe he knows something he can't share. I don't know. But I will remain skeptical until I see some hard evidence that actually makes sense. Because there's a lot of innuendo. There's a lot of people who suggest or say they're convinced. But I haven't seen anything that makes me 100% convinced that it's basically the idea that it's extraterrestrial or extra dimensional, or that these things are even vehicles, or that these things aren't ours. So he had on one of the F-18 Super Hornet pilots from that incident in '04 that got a bunch of attention because it's been released for the first time 5 times. I keep seeing the premiere of it. Never before seen footage, and it's always the same footage of them. They're using a thermal tracker and they're tracking this Tic Tac thing that's apparently moving ridiculously quick, and it's 2 different F-18s. I think that's why. I think they were F-18Fs, which is why there's 4 pilots involved. But there's two different dudes tracking it, so they were convinced something was there because they were both picking it up. It was both moving, and the footage is weird. It's weird. I don't know what's going on. It's not crystal clear or anything. You can look it up. Just look up F-18 tracks Tic Tac or something. But he had the pilot on, and one of the pilots on. And I've heard them talk before, and they're convinced it's something unexplained. They think the most probable thing is that it's an off-world craft of some sort. They haven't been threatened or suppressed. This isn't like the X-Files. The Navy's looking into it. They're concerned. I mean, they've been looking into this stuff since '07. That was something that happened in '04. So this is 15 plus years in the making, this new round of investigations. So I don't know. We don't have the findings. And the problem is I'm sure in certain occasions it was probably a classified aircraft of some sort that they can't talk about. And the problem is, even if there's 3 incidents that are ironclad, one of them is extraterrestrial and 2 of them are top secret black aircraft, that becomes extremely difficult now to talk about the whole program of what it uncovered. Because imagine if they released, they say, okay, this one incident, we are confident it was a craft that it was from another dimension, another planet, or whatever. And we're confident of that for these reasons. And they're going to say, well, what about these other incidents you're investigating? Well, we can't comment on those. Well, is this thing a threat? No, we don't believe this is a threat, or we don't know. And then it's, well, what are those other incidents? And then they just want to dig and dig and dig. And that would be a problem, because It's a matter of basically like, do you tell the truth or do you reveal black projects that put our national security at risk? I should say probably most people would say no. They want to know the truth. But you got to remember, if you're in the government and you have that kind of power, and people's lives and livelihood are on the line, that's not such an easy decision to make. Plus, I'm sure there's different groups arguing with each other about it. I would be interested to see how involved the president is, because Bush administration started it, which means that, I don't know, maybe because of the leaking and stuff, they didn't even bother passing intel up to the president. I mean, I don't know how aware of the details the president of the United States is on black projects and experimental aircraft, like how much they know. Because the problem is, every time you tell somebody, particularly somebody high profile, because the president of the United States he's got the most amount of ears listening to every step he takes, and everything he does, and every transmission he says. He's got the most people. Not that the most people hear it, but the most people are trying to listen to that when you think foreign intelligence. So sometimes it's probably to say, "Oh, we're working on a hypersonic aircraft, and it should be ready by August," right? Something like that, right? They think that they've done this. There's not really too much point in sending the president a memo on that, because now you're risking a leak. He's going to find out when he needs to find out, and he's not going to be pissed off about it, because it's like, well, what's the good of him knowing other than it's interested? I suspect especially if they're studying these craft and it's inconclusive, basically, we don't know if it's a natural phenomena. We don't know if it's some sort of weird glitch that both the radars saw, and the thermal camera saw somehow, or it's something we weren't able to figure out and identify, or if it was off-world, maybe it's completely inconclusive. Are they going to tell the president, sir, we found nothing? we found nothing we can say for sure. They're probably not going to bother reporting all the way up, but I don't know, maybe. It depends on, I guess, how involved they are. You got bigger fish to fry if you're the president of the United States. I hate to say that. I mean, that's super important, but in terms of your day-to-day, that kind of bombshell, it's either going to drop or it's not. And it doesn't matter whether he finds out the second it happens or he finds out a week later when they, have like the intelligence briefing and decide how they want to present it to him, because it's not going to change. But it's interesting. But yeah, I'm disappointed, just because, like, I wanted more details. I wanted more. Okay, here's what we looked into. Here's all the incidents we looked into, and here's the conclusions we came to. Or, because apparently, I remember they had said, I think in 2012 or 2011, oh yeah, we shut the program down. And then for whatever reason, in 2016, I think it was, I mean, maybe it was 2017. Actually, I think it was 2017. They said, oh, we never really shut the program down. We just didn't like all the eyes on it. Which goes to show you, that means you don't do that unless basically they're investigating classified aircraft in some case. I don't know if you guys remember, I guess this was this last year or was this 2 years ago? I think this is about 2 years ago. Every major area in the United States was hearing these booms, loud sonic booms, and up and down East Coast, West, everywhere, you're hearing these. Everybody heard them. I heard it. Thousands of people heard it, and a lot of people just heard it and they just thought it was like a truck moving or something. Sometimes it was happening at night. Sometimes it was just happening in the middle of the day. It wasn't super disturbing, but it was like these booms, and people thought like, oh, there's people are setting off pipe bombs or something. But then people realized like, oh no, this shit's happening like all over the country all at the same time with the internet. I'm sure whoever planted the initial story of, oh yeah, it's there's been firework explosives. I'm sure, and it doesn't sound like fireworks. If you remember hearing what that noise sounded like, it actually would be plausible that it sounds like a pipe bomb going off somewhere. But now we know that wasn't the case. That wasn't happening everywhere like people were able to hear it from ridiculous distances. Like entire like regions will be like, yeah, we heard that around this time. That is one of our aircraft. That's something. Now the rumor, the word on the street is that it's the SR-73. I don't know. Might be that. Might be something else. There was there was stuff back in the what was it the late '90s with the pulse detonating engines that we knew we were working on. Did we ever employ it? Well, military says no, we never built that. I don't know. I don't see why if we could build it we wouldn't. It obviously never went into full production, but there's a good amount of evidence, particularly audio recordings of what pretty much sounds like pulse detonating engine happening at high altitude. So this might be something similar, and I'm sure this thing, and I'm sure there's things that pilots have seen because we're testing something, we're doing something, and it looks weird, and they're like, "What the hell? What is this?" Sometimes it's a shadow. I've seen that happen where there was footage. I think it was some MiGs, and they were supposed to be looking at this like cylinder because there's that phenomena of like the cylinders. Those are hard to explain, but I haven't seen any hard evidence like either way. But there's people who believe in like the cylinder UFOs. If you look that up, like, but there was one I remember seeing. It was some MiG pilots, and they were convinced they had seen it. And I watched the footage a couple of times, and then I realized it was a shadow from something above them. So when it looked like it darted off, it was because it basically dropped off the cloud cover, and just wild. It could have been an aircraft above them accelerating. Could have been an SR-71 or an A-12 or something like that. There's a lot of phenomena that can cover that cause that kind of stuff. I mean, you'll see things like reflections of mountains and cities and skies and stuff because of just weird factors having to do with weather. But that doesn't mean everything everybody's seen, because this phenomena has been reported since pretty much humans have been talking to each other, particularly since the modern era. I mean, you can go back all the way to World War II, and they still report crazy things. The Foo Fighter phenomena, balls of light following bombers, and they're like, "What the hell is this about?" Because the Germans had like all kinds of crazy ass aircraft, and that's what they were afraid it was. That's what started the initial investigation. Was like, are the Germans like using something crazy to like track us? And that's kind of how this investigation started. In the Foo Fighters case, I don't think they ever fully explained it, but it seems like it has something to do with these large formations of bombers and ionosphere and chaff, and there's like a lot of weird electrical phenomena that occurs. It seems like it was that. It doesn't seem like alien ships were appearing as balls of light to track bomber formations for some unknown reason. That doesn't seem plausible. Also, they haven't had any evidence of that. While evidence of strange ass electrical phenomena from massive amounts of chaff and aircraft and explosions and God knows what else that can kind of mess with the atmosphere. Getting off topic. But the point is, this stuff is really interesting, and it's frustrating because every time you're teased with something, like more information to make it more interesting, because I'd like it solved either way. If it's a classified aircraft, that interests me because I love aerospace stuff, and I'm always speculating what the next new technology is going to be for aircraft. Maybe I'll do a video on from what I've looked up, from what I believe about the F-19 and what I believe about the possibly the Aurora project. I have my own theory on that. I don't have hard facts to back it up, but I do have a theory about it. But I'd love to know that stuff, and we're just not getting a straight answer. And I think because even if there's off-world craft, as they're saying, that they've recovered, there's probably also a whole number of occasions where it is something that's like a black project or a secret aircraft, or it's Russian, right? Think about that. Russians fly a Delta Stealth or something over Alaska. Then we either can't track it or have trouble with it, and then we spot it, and then now we got to admit that we couldn't track something that it violated our airspace. Do we want to tell the Russians that? Probably not. Likewise with the Russians. I mean, I'm sure they have their own list of UFO sightings, and it probably doesn't. There's probably a lot of areas where it doesn't overlap with ours because I'm sure we send stuff that they see and they don't know what it is, and they say, well, this is unidentified. So it's either the Americans screwing around with some sort of hypersonic aircraft or it's aliens. I don't know. You're Russia. You just shrug your shoulders, like whatever. Billborn MiGs. That's the solution. So, one last thing. A good example that you can look up. It's probably the best black aircraft footage I've seen from the last 5-10 years. There's a channel. I can't remember the name of it, but if you look it up, X-shaped UFO, Edwards Air Force Base. Now, Edwards Air Force Base, they do test, I should say, experimental aircraft, but an experimental aircraft could be like an F-16 with like a new sensor. Like that's still an experimental aircraft technically. But they there's this thing, and it's an X, and it's flying around. It's kind of hard to tell what the scale is, but if you look at it, it's freaky. It's like, what the hell is this thing? And there's really good footage of it. Pentagon's never commented on that. I'm surprised the footage stayed up as long as it did. But it was something. And you see that, and it's really easy to tell from this aircraft that this thing's just doing maneuvers and stuff over the base. Like it's something the base is checking out. There's no fighters scrambling to intercept it. Nobody's shooting at it, So it's not like it's an unknown vehicle. Edwards Air Force Base obviously knew whatever they were doing up there. But you see this thing flying around, and it's wild. And I just imagine seeing something like that in the wild. That probably would freak you the hell out. And if the first thing you thought was like, that's got to be extraterrestrial, I wouldn't really blame you. It looks weird. It looks crazy. But it's not in that case. In that case, it's one of ours. But it seems fantastical. So, stuff happens. And will 2020 be the year of disclosure? Every year they say it's going to be the year of disclosure, and it never ends up being the year of disclosure. Although that would be one hell of a thing for 2020. I mean, we've had a pretty crappy year so far with just basically Chinese virus and all kinds of stuff happening. And if we got that would be kind of a big win. Although, hell of a year to have to remember that's when it was disclosed. Like that's when the announcement happened, and we confirmed Intelligent Life. Be like, yeah. So in history, pretty much we were having one of the worst years ever, and there was a Chinese virus that was killing a lot of people. Except, also everything was locked down, so the economy was kind of not doing so hot. Everybody was pissed off at each other. There were communists trying to burn down federal buildings, and then we found there were aliens. What would even happen? My God. Like, would the left and right, like, stop trying to, like, kill each other for, well, I should say, would the left stop rioting and screaming Black Lives Matter when they know that, like, there's alien lives out there, too? I don't know. Like, I kind of wonder, like, would that unite us? At least the fascination in that, would that unite us? Hey, Trump, if it is legit, give it a shot. Although, have some evidence, because you could make the announcement from inside of a flying saucer and land and get out and then talk to a crowd of people and then shake hands with a gray alien wearing a MAGA hat, and they would say, no, this is fake. Trump's a liar. So just, I don't know. Maybe that's why he's not doing anything. Maybe he does know, and he's just like, well, if I'm gonna say something, the media is gonna pretend it's not the case, and I just don't want to deal with that. I'm being facetious, but that's all. Just wanted to follow up on the story that broke last night, or I should say it broke sometime yesterday, and then Tucker covered it. Like, that was the first like massive amounts of people heard it because nobody reads the New York Times. And continue not to read the New York Times because their quote was BS. It just was clickbait. So sucks, but whatever. We'll keep watching the skies, and we'll keep watching the what these agencies say, especially the ONI, Office of Naval Intelligence. Keep an eye. They might slip some info between the lines. So that's all.